Hey everyone, it's Kelsey. This is Essentially Book. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. And first off, new hair, new me. Perfect for the new year. And today we're going to talk about the worst books that I read in 2024. And I don't really even want to say worst. Let's go with most disappointing, because I'm pretty good at making sure I pick books that are at least going to be like 2 to 3 stars. I rarely pick a book that I know I'm going to hate, right? And sometimes, that happens, but I had no 1-star books this year. Had a couple 2 stars and even some 3 stars. So more on this list is going to be most disappointing. Like, I read a book for an author that was really bad, but like, I'm not gonna advertise that publicly because like she wrote a whole book and I'm proud of her for that. More of these books are books I had high hopes for or was excited for, and then they just fell really flat for me. So that's what this video will be. I apologize that it's not like Bookmas where I'm doing daily, but it's January. I don't really care right now. And then one of my kind of New Year's resolutions, but not, is I'm trying to be more of a wine drinker, like a more informed wine drinker. So I'm learning about wine a lot. I've joined my local wine shop's wine club, and this is the wine from Chile. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon, and they're doing like regions of the world this year, so I think that's just fun. But anyways, so I'm gonna drink my wine as I'm filming this. So we will get started with book number 1, which is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. And I really like Catherine Center. She's a comfort author for me, and one that like I just know going in it'll be low stakes, it'll be what I need. And I picked this up after I had my very traumatic whitewater rafting experience this year because I just needed something escapist, and this was that. Okay, and so I gave it 3 stars, but it just wasn't. It's about a girl who, her name's Sadie, and she is like walking one day and kind of gets into like an accident where somebody runs into her, and she wakes up in the hospital and she suddenly has face blindness, which I guess is a really common thing. I did not know this. And so she can't really like register faces. Like people she knows who they are because she's known them her whole life, but anybody else, she wouldn't know. So she goes on a blind date like after this event with a man who's a vet. And at the same time, she has a horrible family. Like they're just the absolute worst. And she's living in her friend's parents' like condo building, and is kind of living in a almost like a maintenance part of the building, but it's enough for her to have an apartment. It has the bare necessities. And she also kind of interacts with this guy in her building a lot. And there's like, so she has 2 love interests, and you're set up with that the whole time. And when kind of the climax of that relationship happens, how it unravels just was super annoying. It was way too convenient. It didn't work for me. And that annoyed me so much that this was one of my most disappointing books of the year. And then my second most disappointing book of the year was I Cheerfully Refuse by Leaf Anger. I loved Peace Like a River, and everything about this book was supposed to be 5 stars for me. So it's about, basically, it's kind of cli-fi, climate fiction set in the future on Lake Superior, basically in Duluth and northbound and then around Lake Superior. That is one of my favorite places in the world. So I was super excited about the setting. I was super excited about it being climate fiction because I usually really like that. And this was like sci-fi. I don't know. It reminded me of The Ferryman by Justin Cronin in a way, but that book did it for me way more. I just couldn't really get into the voice of the main character, and it really kind of didn't wrap up in the way that I wanted at the end. And especially like for how much I did love the setting because it's places I've been, but he doesn't explicitly say like you're in Duluth, you're in Two Harbors, you're in Grand Marais. He doesn't say things like that, like Sault Ste. Marie, like you can guess. So that was kind of fun, but the whole like plot and how it unraveled was extremely disappointing for me. Okay, and then the next one is called Wish I Were Here. I can't remember the author's name, but it'll be right there. And this one was an ARC that I got from NetGalley. I read it pre-release, and I've seen a lot of people really love it, but it just was like too simplistic, too perfect. This girl loses her identity. Like she just one day doesn't have an identity as she's trying to become like, she's a doctor in math and is like getting her first position teaching and like tenure, all these things. And as she goes to log in, they're like, you're not showing as like a real person. So she loses like her entire identity and lives in this condo building, kind of a theme, I guess, of books that I've read, but lives in this condo building, and the doorman, Luca, is like Prince Charming. But he's also just easygoing, and he's like, okay, I'll help you. Like, let's figure this out. And it's like this wild goose chase through Manhattan, and I think it's Manhattan. It might be Philadelphia. I don't know, it's a city. Like the cast of characters were cute. It was just too cutesy for me, honestly, but she like loses her identity, but then when she gets her identity back, because it's a rom-com, like it's happy ending, it just like didn't make sense. I'm like, you took us on this whole ride and then that was how it wrapped up. Like, that's it. Okay, cool. So it's just extremely disappointing, like a lot. And then another book that I was so graciously sent by the publisher and I was super pumped about it was The Fury by Alex Michaelides. And a lot of people like read this year. It was a very hyped release earlier on in the year. And I will say his writing is really good. It's super smart. Usually there's kind of a play element. There are some Easter eggs to other books of his in this one that I caught. The setting was really great. It's like a remote island in Greece. Unreliable narrator. And throughout the book, you're just you know you're going to be on for a wild ride. Like if you've read The Silent Patient, like that one I loved. 5 stars. It like totally surprised me at the end. I thought it was brilliant. I think Alex Michaelides, he tries so hard to be smart in his like unraveling of the mystery, and he's good at it. They are clever mysteries. This one though was like, you've got to be kidding me. It just kind of kept like red herring after red herring, and then like unreliable narrator. Like, we get it, you're unreliable. It kind of broke the fourth wall a little bit. Like, and then when you figure out what happened, it just felt like a letdown after like all the tangents we went on, all these different things, and how good his writing is. It did not do it for me at all. I was extremely disappointed because I was actually so excited for it, for the fact that it was based on like a remote island. Like it had gorgeous like scenery, and his writing is so smart, but it just, it was not good for me. My next book is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I read Bride and thought it was a super delight. Like, I had so much fun with Bride. This felt to me like Bride, but in contemporary romance, in that Bride is by far Ali Hazelwood's spiciest book. This book is also super spicy. But the only thing I can like summarize this book up as, because I don't remember much of the plot, like all of her books are women in STEM, where men in STEM kind of, you know, like are the worst, and women get like stepped over all the time for promotions. I like Ali Hazelwood, so please know that like her books, I will read every book she comes out with because I do like them. But this one, the only thing I can remember about this is, we get you guys have trauma, just freaking communicate. That's my review, because it's like the entire book I'm like, oh my God, yes, we get it. You guys all have trauma. You've had traumatic upbringings, but like, great. What are we gonna do about it? Like, it just felt like she kept coming back to that over and over again, and it did not do it for me at all. And then the next book that was a disappointment was The Secret Life of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. And I have read multiple books by her. She's a really great author. I think this one, I read Becoming Mrs. Lewis by her this year, and I really, really liked that. She's really good at taking historical fiction and historical events and making it very readable. And this is about the kids who were billeted away from London during the Blitz. And so these 2 sisters go out there and live in a countryside, and one of the daughters goes missing. Their mom, when they were living with her pre the Blitz, and then they had this like story that they always told each other, like the sisters and the mom. It was a story that they made up for each other. And then you fast forward to present day in the book. This story essentially is published in hard copy. And the older sister's like, oh my God, Flora is still alive. And so it takes you kind of back dual timeline to what is happening. How does this story get published and all of that? And my issue with this one was that it was just so perfectly constructed. You were like, everything just conveniently happened exactly as like how you would think you should fix it. I guess I want my authors to be a little more clever, like take me down a couple different rabbit holes. It was just fairly predictable. And we read this as a book club, and we all kind of said the same thing. Like, it just felt too perfect and not kind of what you expect out of this author, honestly. Like, I just think she felt like she had to wrap everything up in a really perfect bow, but the stories were traumatic, and like I expected it to be a little more messy. And so it was honestly like such a disappointment. It was hard for me to read. Like, I was just kind of done with it. I didn't want to finish it, but because it was a book club, I did. So there's that, I guess. But yeah, it just was let down. And she has a new one coming out, and I hate that I'm kind of like skeptical about it because I didn't love this one. So I'm hoping this one redeems her, because I love Becoming Mrs. Lewis. I loved Once Upon a Wardrobe. That's one of my favorite books of all time. And so I don't know. we'll see. I'll read it because I'll read everything by her. All right. And there we have it, friends. Those were my most disappointing reads of 2024. I am hoping 2025 is a much better reading year. I just don't really feel like 2024 was like a standout reading year. And that's okay. We have those years. So yeah, if you've read any of the ones below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like if you absolutely love them, please tell me why. But those were my disappointing ones. Curious what your most disappointing read of 2024 was too. So you can drop that in the comments as well. All right, until the next video, everybody. Bye.